Beef trim doesn't fail quality checks because people don't care. It fails because high volume lines are complex, fast, and unforgiving. Dozens of touch points, multiple handoffs, and very little room for error. In this episode, we're talking about how vision-based inspection helps quality teams catch unwanted materials early, before they damage equipment, disrupt operations, or it turns into a food safety event. Because when inspection's done right, quality isn't just measured, it's served. Hello, and welcome to Quality Lines. In this episode, we're discussing foreign material in beef trim, where the risks come from, why low-density material is especially challenging, and how AI vision inspection fits into the process. Our guest is Vernon Stout, KPM's Technical Operations Director of Vision Inspection Solutions. Vernon, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And by us, I mean me, I suppose. Anyway, let's get into it. I've never been into a beef processing plant, so I haven't a clue what it looks like. Can you paint us a picture?
Absolutely. So these beef processing plants that I've spent a lot of time at are going to be harvesting thousands of animals a day, starting out with the cow coming into the plant, and then it is harvested. At that point, the plants are extremely efficient. It's actually quite remarkable to watch how fast that they are able to process the animal. Initially taking off their skin, and then breaking the animal down into all of its components. But it's definitely not done by one or two people. It is done by an entire factory of people. Hundreds of different people are involved in taking part in taking the animal from being on the hoof all the way to being in your freezer. And there's a lot to it. So the first thing is they are going to part the animal out into two pieces. And by doing that, you have to remove all of the other stuff before you have two halves of a cow. The animals, once they go into the refrigerator, are going to hang for a period of time. And once they have hung for an appropriate number of days, they will then be processed on what they call the fab floor. The fab floor is where they're going to take all the primals of that animal apart. So you're going to have something like the chuck primal, as an example, or some other part, and they're going to first of all separate all of them into primals. Once they do that, then they will start to turn them into steaks or roasts or other parts that you would see at the grocery store. In that process, there are lots and lots of people involved, including lots of different pieces of equipment. They're going to put different parts into different bins. Those bins are often called combo boxes, which is a large cardboard box that is lined with a plastic liner. All the people in the plants are going to be wearing some type of protective equipment, such as anything from chainmail to protect them from getting cut, to cotton gloves, to rubber suits, all kinds of different things to not only protect the person, but also to protect the product from the person. So everything stays nice and clean. In that process also, there are a lot of pallets being moved around because as you harvest, let's say 3,000 to 5,000 animals per day, you're going to fill up these combo bins with lots of different of the same part. So let's say you've got chuck roasts, and you've got now 300 chuck roasts in a chuck primal in a single combo bin. That pallet is moved to the next stage. In that process, things can happen. And so we'll talk probably more about that later on, but that gives you kind of a feel for what the plant is. Lots of moving parts, lots of moving machinery, and there are wash stations and all types of processes to ensure that the product stays safe throughout.
Nice. So you mentioned things happen, and the topic for today's episode is a foreign material. So where in that process, you painted an amazing picture, by the way, thank you.
Yeah.
Where in that process would you say foreign material can be introduced?
Well, it can be introduced in a variety of different ways. Let's talk about what the primary types of foreign material are really quick. We've got plastic. So from those Those combo bins, those have a plastic liner. Sometimes those plastic liners can get torn in some way, shape, or form when they're getting dumped or snagged on something. So a piece of that plastic could end up being in the product. Also, people use cotton gloves to keep their hands warm, and then they sometimes place rubber gloves over the top of those gloves. And sometimes either a cotton glove can get, let's say they've got a stash of extra gloves there. Maybe one of those were to fall into the meat somewhere. Another thing is if a piece of that rubber glove were to rip off and get into the meat. Or let's say they're moving some pallets around and they set a pallet down and a chunk of wood flips off of that pallet and lands on in another combo bin or something. So there's a variety of different ways that foreign material can get into a product. And again, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people touching the meat or the product as it moves through the plant. And so there's lots of opportunities.
So I got I guess a trick question for you.
Sure.
What type of foreign material would you like to eat as a consumer?
Oh, I guess if I had to eat one, it'd probably be cotton gloves, but I prefer not to eat any of those. Yeah.
That's right. There you go. So how are folks that don't have a vision inspection system, how are they detecting foreign material now?
Great question. Most of it is human inspection or people using their eyeballs as the vision inspection. So they're standing there for anywhere between 8 and 10 hours, maybe even sometimes 12 hours, looking at beef as it moves along, or pork or chicken as it moves along the conveyor. They're looking for foreign material, and if they see it, they can either stop the belt or just grab it off and put it in the bin. Typically, when that happens, there's a little bit of a process that they follow, most facilities, to ensure that they know where that foreign material was introduced. And I think maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
All right. So you had mentioned at the beginning that we've gotten quite efficient at processing and harvesting.
It is amazing.
The animals that are coming in. So I can only assume that there's lots of animals and that the speed of the production lines are probably fairly quick.
Absolutely.
So how do humans accurately detect foreign material at that rate of speed?
It's a great question. I've spent some time looking at those belts, and in my previous life of training, the human mind only can work efficiently doing the same thing for a certain amount of time. And so these people are sitting there looking at those lines, trying to find this foreign material. And frankly, most humans are really good at figuring out what is foreign material and what is not. They're able to see it. The problem is that we get tired. We weren't made for that. We're not made to look at the exact same piece of meat or the same conveyor belt going past us for hours on end. 15 minutes, maybe a really, really fantastic inspector might be able to go up to 30 or 45 minutes, absolutely max, being able to stay as focused as they need to really find the foreign material that may or may not come on the belt. Oftentimes, in many plants, the workers are responsible for doing two things because there's not enough foreign material to have them just look for one thing. So they're looking for a lean fat ratio in addition to looking for foreign material.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So what are some of the hidden challenges in keeping a plant floor actually clean?
Well, that's a great question. The challenges are all these different moving parts. If you're a plant manager or a area manager or supervisor, you're looking at all these different pallets moving around. You've got policies, procedures in place. If you see pieces of wood to get them off the floor there's people that's their whole job. They're walking around finding things that could flip up or could become foreign material and removing them from the plant floor. But the reality of it is that things happen. Gloves fall off the stand and go into the meat. Chunks of gloves get sliced when you're cutting or moving. There's potentially you're removing bones from meat, and that bone slices a piece of your glove off. The reality of it is even with all the stuff that plant managers do, and in my experience, do very, very well, there's still foreign material that ends up in the product.
Sure.
In addition to the things that I just talked about, machines have I won't call them breakdowns, but wear. So little shreds of plastic can come off of the machines, both blue or white or whatever color the runners are on the machines can make it so that those pieces get into the materials or into the product. Another thing is oftentimes meat is packaged into those primals that we were talking about earlier. Those are large pieces of meat that can weigh 50 pounds plus. Well, you don't ship a 50-pound piece of meat to the grocery store or send that to the restaurant anymore. That is all trimmed out and turned into either steaks or roasts or other things. So one facility might put it into vacuum packed packages and ship it to a separate facility to turn it into the smaller steaks or whatever needs to go to that particular grocery store or restaurant. So they have to open those packages. Well, if you're sitting there opening packages all day long of this nice, beautifully packaged meat, sometimes a little piece of that plastic, if you slice it and you don't get the package opened all the way, you have to slice it again, and there could be that little sliver of sometimes clear plastic that gets into the meat.
Okay. And I guess what we're talking about here is it's not like a full glove coming down the line or like a big chunk of pallet. The stuff that we're talking about finding is what we're calling like low density materials, like the plastic you had mentioned,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So why do you think those are becoming more common?
Well, I think more common is because we're using greater mechanized machines. We're using machines to transport and move product.
Yeah.
It has become more efficient to create one specific type of product in one facility and then move that to a different facility to do all the secondary finishing of that product. Because of that, you've got to package that product into something to keep it safe and clean while it's in transport. And then you have to open that package. When you open that package, it will introduce or very likely introduce some type of foreign material from the packaging itself. And so if I was to ask, why is foreign material a bigger thing? If one guy is processing an animal from start to finish and he doesn't ever have to transport it from point A to B, well, there's not as much, it's not going to come in contact with as much potential foreign material. But when you have all these different moving parts, it has the possibility of introducing additional foreign material.
Yeah. And I'm guessing whenever depending on how far that foreign material makes it down the line, there are ripple effects related to that foreign material. What are some of those?
Yeah. So when a piece of foreign material is on a piece of trim. Now, let me make sure we all understand what trim is, right? Trim is pieces of the carcass that you've cut off that could typically be waste, except for they're not waste because you can turn those into hamburger and into sausage and other types of products. So trim is all of the waste product from all these other cuts. And then ultimately that's going to get turned into hamburger. Well, if you can find that foreign material before it goes through a grinder or a pre-grinder or a mixer, then it's easy to find. Once it goes into a grinder, then now this one piece of foreign material might be 400 or 500 or 2,000 different pieces of foreign material that are a lot smaller and much more difficult to find. So it can have impacts way down the line. Also, depending on what the foreign material is, it can damage the grinders and cause issues there as well.
Okay, and that'll slow things down.
Yep.
You don't want that.
For sure.
So I'm guessing that, so for a long, long time now, almost every production line, whether you're talking beef or bread or any sort of material, are going to have detections in place that are automated, things like metal detectors and x-rays,
sure.
right?
Yep, absolutely.
But I'm guessing those don't really fit the bill here.
Well, for sure they have their place, and finding foreign material is definitely not a one step or one piece of equipment situation. Metal detectors are fantastic for finding metal, especially metal that is stainless steel or some kind of denser material. Aluminum becomes quite a bit more difficult to find in a metal detector, but sometimes X-rays, especially if you have a dual system X-ray. So finding wood, finding bone, things like that, you're going to be able to find in an X-ray. Anything that's a different density than the product that you're trying to package. So you've got your metal detector, great for finding metal, and it can find fairly small pieces of metal. Then you've got an X-ray machine. That's also good at finding other types of situations or products like bone or dense plastic, potentially, if it's a really dense piece of plastic, or if the plastic has had some additive added to it so you can find it. But then there's the light plastics, the low density materials, such as what we talked about, the cardboard, the combo bins, that combo plastic, the clear plastic, that's the wrapping, that's the cryovac bags and things like that. Those are where a vision system starts to come into play, because neither one of those other systems, the metal detector or the X-ray machine, has any ability really to find that low density product. So that's when a vision system really starts to shine.
Okay. And it wouldn't be an episode of Quality Lines if we didn't talk about AI. And you brought us into vision inspection systems. Yeah. So how do you train AI to distinguish the difference between like beef fat and foreign materials like plastic?
It's a great question. So, AI is artificial intelligence, right? And so you're artificially making a machine intelligent. And there's a lot to that. So seeing as we don't have like 10 hours to talk about this, we'll make the brief version, right? So basically what the machine needs to be able to see it. So you need to have enough texture and information to actually be able to see the product. One of the things that we've said historically is if a human being can see it, then we can train a computer to be able to see it and the AI to be able to find it. That is not always necessarily true, but oftentimes it's true. And so how do we do it? Well, step one is we need to show the machine a whole bunch of good product. We need to tell it what it's looking at. So if we're talking about beef or pork or chicken, we're going to need to show it a whole lot of beef that is clean, that doesn't have foreign material in it, so that it knows what it looks like. Because guess what? Believe it or not, there is white fat and white tendons and other things in beef that are perfectly acceptable and good. We actually want fat in our hamburger, right? If we took all the fat away, then all of a sudden our hamburgers are not so tasty. So we want to make sure there's the right amount of fat, but we don't want to eject all that. So how do we compare the difference between a piece of white styrofoam or a cotton glove that's white and compare that to a piece of white fat? Well, we give it enough data or texture information for it to be able to actually start to identify those two different things. So step one is give it a whole bunch of images of clean product. Then you introduce the dirty product or something that has foreign material in it. Now you can try to say, hey, machine, learn this all on your own and figure this out, but inevitably it makes bad decisions because it is a machine that doesn't know a whole lot. And so you have to have a person teach it how to know what is good and what is bad. So you have to have a labeler. A labeler is a person that's going to go and look at every single one of those pictures and put a circle around or a square or a highlight the thing that the machine thinks is bad or that you want to tell the machine is bad. Once you have done a whole lot of those, so it could be thousands of images of a piece of clear plastic or a piece of white plastic or a piece of green plastic or blue or yellow or a cotton glove or whatever it is that you're looking for, and you've done 1,000 or so pictures of each one of those, then you feed both of those pieces of information into a pre-existing model, and then it converts that. Basically, it goes through this thing called epochs. And it eventually it converges all those epochs together and allows the machine to go, okay, on epoch 1, I didn't find this, but on epoch 2, I found it, and I didn't find it, these other things. And eventually, after maybe 10 or 20 or 200 epochs, it converges and allows the machine to go, okay, I think I've got something here. So what do you do next, right? You have to test that model and find out if it actually learned the right things. And so then you actually go and put some foreign material in there and find out if it found it. Then you have to adjust it and continually fine tune it until you get to a model that actually works properly.
Okay, my goodness.
It's
So
quite a bit of work.
yeah, not easy stuff. So, and I'm guessing, is it safe to assume that you had mentioned there can be like various types of foreign material detections?
Yeah.
And it doesn't just say what foreign material, right? It'll say like, no, I found a glove, I found plastic, right?
So for sure, depending on how you train the model and how much compute power you have available to the model to actually uh, define those things, it can absolutely tell you what kinds of things it's finding.
Okay, because you could use that information to kind of backtrace and find out the
Yep.
source of the contamination, right?
Yep, for sure. So if
Oh,
you're finding wood and it's saying, hey, you're finding wood, you know you've got a pallet issue that you've got to go figure out how to take care of. You know, if it's
sure.
finding gloves, you're like, wait a minute, who upstream keeps dropping their gloves into the product stream? So you can backtrace that upstream until you find it. And ultimately, that's your goal, is to make it so that it never happened in the first place.
No, okay, very good.
You know, something that's interesting I need to point out on this point is that we have had customers that go, hey, we don't have a foreign material problem. Then we put in an AI system or vision system, and we find out that they do have a foreign material problem. Then they go and solve the upstream issue, and they say, well, now we don't need to keep the foreign or the vision system there because we now know we don't have a foreign material problem. It's kind of one of these things where if the vision system goes away, then all of a sudden your foreign material problem comes back.
So there's a similar saying in IT, and there's a comic where there's an owner of a company sitting. He's looking at all these employees working, and everything's going well, and he's like, everything's working. Why do I need somebody in IT, right? And then in the next frame, nothing is working.
Right.
And he's like, well, nothing's working. Why do we have people in IT, right? So I feel like the same type of scenario.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
but I'm guessing that so having a vision inspection system like this also generates data,
It
right?
does. Yep.
And so couldn't uh, a manufacturer use that data as a defense for customer complaints?
Absolutely. You know, this is one of those things that different companies have used the data differently, and certainly they have the ability to say, well, we know that this much foreign material was found. Uh, Customer complaints are always a challenge, right? But we have had customers that have had, let's say, 50 complaints about foreign material a month in a particular product, and using the vision systems have been able to eliminate those customer complaints altogether. So, uh,
Mm.
but the big thing is identifying where that foreign material comes from, so that you can eliminate the foreign material before it gets into the product, and that's really what eliminates customer complaints. But the vision systems also are scanning a certain portion of the product, and it's critical that you're not using the vision system just to remove product. If you say, well, I'm going to take, I know all this product has lots of foreign material in it, and you're going to use the vision system to remove all the foreign material out of it. That is not the best case, or that's not the best use of the vision system. The best use is to use that data to then be able to go and remove the foreign material from ever arriving there, because just so that we're all clear, no machine, whether it be an AI-enabled vision system or a AI-enabled X-ray machine, or just a traditional X-ray or a dual mode X-ray or a metal detector, they're not going to find everything. And so you need to use that data. The plant managers need to use that data to remove the foreign material from ever getting into the product in the first place.
Okay. Now, is it safe to assume that companies that have implemented a system like this, like that their labor requirements have changed?
In fact, it has. We know that from anecdotal information as well as from raw data to be able to define that. So for sure, sometimes, and people need to keep this in mind, is that some of that labor is just going to shift. It's going to go to a different place. You are going to need people to maintain these machines. These are not machines that you're just going to put in place, just like your Your electric motors don't last forever. You've got to put those in place, and then you've got to maintain those. Artificial intelligence enabled vision systems need to be maintained. And so some of that labor needs to be to maintain those vision systems. And then there is certainly a reduction of labor because one vision system can replace up to 4, maybe even 8 people, depending on the vision system and what it's doing in the environment that it's in.
Okay, well, very good. Well, I'll tell you what, Vermin, you've made it to the rapid fire round. You've been in more than one beef processing plant, correct?
I have many.
Second question. You've seen some foreign material, correct?
Absolutely.
Third question. What is the most unusual piece of foreign material you've seen?
I think probably one of those USDA pins. It's a little pin that's like tiny.
Yeah.
We actually had a particular line that found them all the time because that line took exactly where they always put the USDA pin in, and they're so super tiny, like less than a millimeter. And so that's I always thought that was amazing that it could find that tiny little piece of plastic.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I thought you meant like an inspector had like a pin.
Not an inspector pin. No. This is every time you harvest an animal, they put a pin or they put a number on the animal so they know where it went, and they use a little plastic pin to poke into the animal, and eventually that has to come out, and there you go.
There you go. So I have never been in a beef processing plant before, but from your description of it, I feel like I have a pretty good picture. But what would you say would surprise me the most, or anyone else who hasn't been in a beef processing plant, about like something you'd find in a plant?
The thing that amazed me the most was how fast they can take a hide off an animal. Seconds.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely incredible. The way that they are able to remove the hide from the animal is just absolutely remarkable.
Okay, very cool. Hamburger or hot dog?
Hamburger.
And is that because of the episode we're recording, or is that?
No, I love hamburgers. A good hamburger, it's got all the right stuff on it. Tasty.
Smash burgers are a trend right now. Are you a smash burger guy, or are you a thick patty guy?
I'm a thick patty guy.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if you didn't have to sleep, what would you do with your extra time?
Ooh, I'd probably farm some more.
Ah, cool, man. Well, that leads me to my next question then. So you're at a steakhouse.
Yes.
What's your cut?
Absolutely. It is, filet. That's the cut. Number two is a ribeye, but the filet is fantastic.
Oh, there you go. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, Vernon, thank you very much for talking us through beef trim and beef production. You've painted an amazing picture. I've gone into this not knowing at all kind of what a plant looks like and what the difficulties are there, but I think you've done a good job of painting that picture for everybody.
Well, thank you.
For our listeners, don't forget to check the info and show notes. If you want more insight like this, you can like and subscribe. I'm your host, Winston Anderson, and whether you're inspecting, testing, or just digesting, thank you for joining us on the Quality Lines.